Welcome to Focus Today. I am delighted and always honored to have with us Daniel Ogan. He is an artist, a consultant, a counselor. He's with the eAgency. You may want to check that out, eAgency.net. Is that right? The eAgency.net. The eAgency.net. And we're here to talk about, well, I think he's nailed it. You're basically saying, Daniel, that true therapy basically happens as a result of being connected to the church or to Christ.
Is
that a broad statement, or is that accurate?
I think that this is an absolute accurate statement. And remember, you said the word true. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that every therapeutical relationship has to be a formalized Christian meeting, mm-hmm. or even within the church. And sometimes when you're having therapy with somebody, they may be far away from the church.
Right.
But in my mind, I'm always considering a couple of things. Number one, this person's eternal soul, mm-hmm. and how this person can be healed. And no one is healed outside by themselves, especially now.
Right.
I believe that discipleship and being within the church is an extremely important aspect of health. In fact, I would say it's probably one of the most important aspects of health, because isolation and it leads to darkness, confusion, mm-hmm. and we need the church. And it's taken me a long time, Perry,
to get to that point.
To get to this point, because believe me, I have.
Now you've
I've
gone through
you've
gone kind of through the clinical cycle, and I know a lot of people do that. And I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it doesn't complete the job. It doesn't finalize it. The other thing about you that I really, really appreciate, you have what is required in therapy that most people can't deal with, and that's called patience.
Patience.
And just your demeanor requires time. Mm-hmm. And that is usually a struggle. Everything we do in this world is instant. I call it the 34-foot miracle. Mm-hmm. You drive in, you order your hamburger, you drive 34 feet and you pick it up. And that's the mindset of our culture. You have these things. You click, you got information. Mm-hmm. But true therapy requires time and patience, right?
It requires time and patience. And let's look at one of the aspects when you talked about working within the clinical set, so to speak, within organizations outside the church. There are a lot of fine people who are working as therapists.
Right.
But in all of those years that I worked in that field, I seen that it was heartbreaking. To be honest, the actual amount of healing, true healing, is rare. And what are you building people up to? For example, in therapy, let's look at the philosophies of therapy. If we look at therapy, what is generally taught in our universities is basically we are looking at the concept of evolutionary process within the human psyche and the human being. Mm-hmm. And therapy is based on that, based on the concept that we are evolutionary creatures and that there was random events, and that's what man is. That's what a therapist, if you ask what a man is, and if you look at mankind like that, then where are their absolutes? Huh. And what can you do? That's how you're looking at the human being, is just an evolutionary process. But if you start to look at a person as an eternal creature, first of all, that was made in the image of God, then your therapy has to take a completely different route. And that route is clearly defined within our Bible, within the church traditions. Mm-hmm. And that's the tools that we have to work with. And it took me a long time to come to that, because for many years, you know, I came to Christ through the Jesus movement, and it was kind of anti-church in certain ways. Not really anti-church, but, you know, let's get together.
Anti-established church.
Anti-established church.
Right.
And as we ran away from that,
right.
and as I ran away from it as a young person, I wanted to help people, and I didn't feel, for some reason at that time, the church was offering answers, and they were offering very simplistic answers. Accept Jesus into your heart, and then everything's going to be okay. And if your eyes were wide open, you saw that that wasn't really happening.
All right, so with your experiences now, Daniel, how would you define therapy? What would you say therapy is?
Therapy to me is, first of all, it has to be built on trust. Then it has to be built on me having absolute respect for who that human is, that this person is an eternal creature made in the image of God. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. The world. For the life of the world. We're not talking about just the Christian element, so to speak. The world.
Right.
Everybody. And when you open your mind up to that, and everyone that you come across is so loved by God, how do you give them that message? This comes into evangelism. But how do you give them that message and then stay within the therapeutical boundaries? Meaning, some people, I may not mention my personal belief for quite a while until trust is developed. But there always comes a point where that person in a healing process, they must come into, I believe that that's what the church is about, a hospital. And within
so excuse me, to you, therapy and evangelism are synonymous.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, so you use therapy, and at the right point, you introduce them that there is a God and he loves you.
And that takes a while.
That takes a while.
One person I'm thinking of this one person, I've had him is in therapy for a year. And when I first met him, he was absolutely against the church, very much into New Age religions, but he was hungry. And I could tell that he had been burnt many years ago within the church. So I was very careful, very sensitive, understanding, I believe, and asking God every moment, dear Lord, give me the words to say. Help me lead this person to the right path. And one of the things that has helped me is that being a member of a church, and I mean a member where I ask my priest, Father Seraphim, for his blessing. I'm under the umbrella of the Orthodox Church, and I believe the church is part of our sacrament is to take healing out into the world. And believe me, if you have this in your heart, people become thirsty.
Big question.
Yes.
Do you think healing, and I don't know if you could use the word true healing, but just healing in its total context, can happen outside of the church?
Okay. I believe the process, okay, first of all, thank God I am not God's lawyer. Yeah. So I don't have to present that case here on this planet, because our Lord is able to do whatsoever he wants to do.
Right.
He's not a tamed God where we, have it all boxed up.
Yeah.
But generally, I've seen the process of healing comes when somebody comes, and this one word we hate in America, submit, humility. Going to a good elder. In our church, this is a priest, or this is someone where you absolutely let your freedom, what is that anyhow? And you say, I'm lost. Not that you become a robot, but that comes even in a family. My son and my daughter are protected as long as I'm a good example. I'm not talking that I'm a dictator. First of all, you must have it within your heart. You must be circumcised. They'll feel it right away if you're giving them any kind of phony religious sentiments. And people do not need Hallmark sentiments anymore. God loves you. Well, what does that mean? They need also to go through a process, and that's helped me to be within a church and to be in discipleship.
All right, I'm going to have to take a break here, but let me ask you this. So often we approach therapy, those of us who are hurting, and I'm including myself, but I mean those who are looking for help, and we come to a pastor, a therapist, a priest, and we're asking them to help us through an issue or a problem. I wonder if we're approaching them right. I'm wondering if we're approaching them that they got the answer, they're going to give it to me, that'll solve my problem, and I walk away.
That is a brilliant question. It really is. And it's a question that deserves more time than just a simple answer.
Yeah.
Because that is perhaps the crux of the whole matter.
Yeah, because I know a lot, and other therapists that I've had on the show will tell you that people come, they just want an answer, and they hope that that answer will solve the problem, they go away. And when it doesn't immediately solve the problem, things get worse. All right, we're going to be right back with Daniel Ogan. By the way, if you want to connect with him, and he does do private counseling, the eAgency, E as in Ed, the eAgency.net is a way to connect with him. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Okay, we're back, and Daniel Ogan's with us today. He's quite a guy. He's a counselor, a Christian counselor, therapist. He also is an artist. He is an evangelist. He uses therapy and evangelism together. Deals with acts of mercy. He's got more patience than you have, than I have. He's very gentle. He heads up the eAgency. That's E as in Ed. The eAgency.net's probably the best way to connect with him. And during the break, he said something that's fascinating. Let's touch on it just for a moment. You actually are using Skype. So if you're watching on the Dove TV right now and you're not in the immediate Medford area, or if you're listening on the Dove radio and you're not in the immediate Dove area, maybe you're up and down the Southern Oregon coast, you're in Northern California, maybe you're in another state with Roku, who knows where you're watching today. You can contact Daniel through the eAgency, and you counsel through Skype. How's that going? That's kind of interesting.
It's interesting, Perry, because at first I was intimidated, because I was thinking in terms of to be with somebody, the three-dimensional aspect, for me to feel your spirit, and to me Skype would be like something between us.
Yeah.
But I believe God has blessed that medium.
Yeah.
And
just like you and I today,
yes,
we're not sitting in the living room with thousands of people, but they're watching it and they're feeling it and sensing it. God uses it.
Right. I had to come to that. So
it's working for you.
I'm a dinosaur.
Oh, I don't know about that. All right. Now, we were dealing with selecting a therapist, which is so key. At that moment, if we're in a hurting position in our life and we seek out counseling, if we're not careful, we're saying to that person, I'm going to come into your office, I'm going to sit in front of you, and I'm going to unload my life to you. At that moment, you're kind of God in the flesh for that person. And I understand that that can be abused, or it can be taken with incredible sense of responsibility and humility, which I believe is your approach. But if, from my perspective, in order to set the scene right, is there a question I should be asking you before I give you my life story?
I think that the question we need to ask our therapist is not how much education they have, although that's important. But what is your view? What is man? Simple question.
What is man?
Yes. Now, a therapist, now remember, when we're talking about Freudian therapy, now he is like the great godfather of therapy. He absolutely did not believe in God. He believed that that was an opiate, that the true health of a human being had us to take those shackles off and accept the responsibility as it is that we are born and we die. And if we're part of an evolutionary process, and that therapy is going down and resolving, so to speak, conflicts are in the subconscious, and it goes on and on. But their view of man is we are part of an evolutionary process, which influenced our world immensely. In fact, it was one of the great heresies of the 20th century. And it has influenced so much therapists, even Christian therapists. It's taken me a long time to even try to get an escape from that concept.
Really?
I look at man as made in the image of God. I look at you or anybody that I come across as great mysteries that I cannot possibly understand you completely. And I need God's discernment. Does not matter how much that I can give you words. I could, let's just say that I'm talking to you and I do an assessment and I come up and I say, well, you have post-traumatic stress syndrome. Good. What does that do? What does it do that I name something? You know that old question, William Shakespeare and Hamlet. I love this one quote. He said, Hamlet is feeling heartsick, and he goes and he says, "Doctor, can you pluck this sorrow from my soul?" Mm-hmm. Think about this. Mm-hmm. Think about mankind and his long existence. What did we do without therapy, psychology, and all the history of mankind? Mm-hmm. So that's how I look at it in therapy. Everyone that I come across, first thing I say to myself is, I don't have the answers. I tell that person I don't have the answers, and then I clearly tell them what this process is going to accomplish and what mental health is. That's another question. How do you define mental health?
I don't know. I come to the conclusion you can't understand the fact that somebody else doesn't understand. You know, and when the cases where I've been involved with mental health issues, the person who has a mental issue doesn't understand that you can't understand. So you're almost in an impasse. If God doesn't open a door there, you're kind of in a catch-22 situation. Right,
and then how is that person led out of that? And how in longevity, because life is long. And unless you as a therapist give this person tools, that's your job. And to me, the major tool for me is, first of all, my relationship, my personal prayer, but also my relationship within the church, because I believe the church is a family and a sacred place. I do believe in having that umbrella. And if I have clients, for example, I have many people from different churches, but as a therapist, after a period of time, because I have Christians who say, I hate the church, I don't want anything to do with it, I do not trust it whatsoever. In fact, I'm not even sure about, it's okay to have those doubts. With me, it's okay to say whatever and have whatever doubts, because I'm going to feel those doubts, and I'm not going to attack them. But the process is leading a person back in to what? There are two kingdoms. When we get down to it, there are the children, the kingdom of darkness, and the kingdom of God. We know that.
The kingdom of light.
That's where we're at.
You use the term acts of mercy. Now, define that, and how do you use that in therapy?
Acts of mercy. That is a good question also. I'll tell you one. I'll give you an example. In most therapy, we meet with somebody for an hour. once a week. They don't know who we are. Now, I work with people quite extensively, and I do different things. And one person that I know of, she grew up as a Christian, got in the wrong road, started using methamphetamine, still had a work ethic, made money, but still was using meth. And through circumstances that weren't hers, those unfortunate circumstances, the feds came into her house, she was arrested, and now here's this girl who grew up in a Christian family, had a good family, is going to penitentiary for 15 years. First of all, I got her, you know, she detoxed off the meth, and then she said, will you help me face prison? How am I going to do that? She lives in Louisiana. Acts of mercy. I go down and stay with her and her husband. They see me every day. They know who I am. They know my spirit. They understand that what I'm giving them is inside of me. It's not a philosophy. It's the bread of life. And they are so hungry.
So, do you incorporate, obviously you do, but you incorporate that because you believe it's part of the healing process?
I absolutely believe it.
Or is it part of the trust-building process? Trust-building,
and everyone's different, meaning that was an act of mercy.
Mm-hmm. For you to go there and be with them.
And in that act of mercy, this person had completely come to Christ, is flying down here to be baptized by Father Seraphim, going through the catechism over the Skype. And what is a catechism? Catechism is therapy. It is telling us the perimeters of this life.
All right, that's a good question to ask. It appears, and I'm a lay counselor, and I get it by default, not because I look for it. I'm overwhelmed with it sometimes, but it appears that people want justification for where they are more than they want change, which requires boundaries and accountability. It's like they want it without boundary and accountability, right?
That is true. But what if you were with somebody who had learned to scapegoat and manipulate and was not taking responsibility for where they were at and were going deeper into the hole, but had they were narcissistic? They couldn't, you know, that's the narcissism is not being able to love or receive love. We're talking deep into narcissism. So let's just say I have people like that. What do I do?
Yeah. What do you do?
I am patient with them. I tell them the first thing, I go, as a therapist, I'll tell you the most important thing for you and I is this. They go, what's that? And I go, that I become salt in your life. And they go, what does that mean, salt? That I make you thirsty. Without thirst, and if you're patient, that takes an intense amount of acts of mercy, not to throw what you know. That's having patience, meaning not just slamming this person with a bunch of scriptures and all that, but understanding where you're going and taking the time.
What keeps you from trying to accomplish too much in a session?
Because
I guess it's I make that mistake every time.
Because I separate between two things. I have what I call first aid sessions, meaning what I'm saying is right now we're not going to do therapy. We're going to do first aid. We're going to take care of the things that are hurting you most. But this is not therapy. This is not going to do, you know, therapy is a process, and that's how I differentiate between the two.
Well, Daniel is a blessing, and he has the E as an ed agency, the eAgency.net. You can contact him 541-951-4134, 951-3130-4134. And if you're out of town, you can connect with him via Skype as well. Thank you, my friend. Blessings.
Thank you, Perry.
You are a blessing. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Welcome back. Well, we got a very special guest for a couple of segments, and I've been looking forward to this. We have Mark Davis with us today. He's a political commentator and the host of the Mark Davis Radio Show. Hold on, being broadcasted every day on the big Blowtorch 660, KSKY in Dallas, Texas. And on Fridays, maybe you pick him up on the William Bennett's nationally syndicated radio show. But he's authored a book called The Lone Star America, How Texas Can Save Our Country. Even though he's on some big radio shows at a big radio station, he has now made it to the big time because he's on the Dove radio and TV network. Hi, Mark.
Let me tell you something. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. And I've been looking at the website and seeing some of the stuff you guys do.
Yeah.
You do big time stuff, and I'm honored. I'm honored to be in your company.
Well, thank you. How you doing, my friend? How's the weather down there? Are you hot?
Why does everybody in San Diego, everybody in the Pacific Northwest, why does everybody ask me about the temperature? Is it because they know that I'm going to have to tell you that it's 105? Yes, it is, which makes it maybe even more noteworthy that even though it's 100 degrees from Memorial Day till Halloween, people are streaming to Texas anyway. There must be a reason.
Well, you know, first of all, you got a governor out just kind of cherry-picking companies all over the country, moving them down there, which is good. Texas is a remarkable story. So you obviously try to write about it. Why'd you write this book?
Well, doing what I do for a living and what I've done for a really long time, it seems like a continuing stream of questions and answers in which we're always asking, what can we do to make the country better? What can we do to make our state better for as long as I've been in Texas? And the answers keep coming back, at least from a conservative perspective. They come back: lower taxes, sensible regulation, restrain spending, honor the Founding Fathers by obeying the Constitution, obey the Bill of Rights, let people own guns as the Second Amendment requires, cleave to certain basic values. And if this is what our Senate candidates should be saying this coming election and what our presidential candidates should be saying, they can point to a place right here in Texas where we've been doing it for 20 years with great success, so that it's not just a matter of principle, there's a proven record.
All right, let me jump ahead a little bit, Mark, and come back. There's great pressure with this current administration to turn Texas Democrat. Do you think that'll happen?
Well, it ain't going to happen in the short term. I'm not in the business of guaranteeing anything in the long term. Wendy Davis is a Democrat running for governor against Greg Abbott. These are the people who will vie for to become Rick Perry's successor this November, to be sworn in January 2015. For about 10 minutes there, it looked like we might have a really huge story, because Wendy Davis is an attractive candidate. She's a smart lady. I've known her for a long time. Her skill was that she was kind of a just left of center Democrat who talked a lot about education funding and support of the troops. I mean, she was a Texas Democrat, which means in many ways she was more conservative than a lot of Northeastern Republicans. But here's the thing. They turned her into an abortion rights rock star. It wasn't really in her DNA. She enjoyed the money. She enjoyed the attention, did that filibuster against what were very reasonable abortion restrictions. And everybody from Hollywood to all these various stretches that yearned to make Texas a purple state and then a blue state, they said, this is it. This is a candidate that can win. Finally, a Democrat governor. Yeah, that's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. But if it does, if it ever does, here's why we need to keep fighting and keep Texas red. Every election day, every election night for president, what do? We know New York is going to go a certain way. We know California is going to go a certain way. We usually know Oregon's going to go a certain way. We go to Florida and Ohio. We bite our nails down to the nub because we never know what they're going to do. Texas is the only large state, the only enclave of a good number of electoral votes that you can absolutely know are going to go Republican every time. If we lose that, if we no longer have that, good luck getting a Republican elected to the White House. Interesting.
Well, now, your last Democrat governor was Ann Richards, right?
Correct. That was right when I got here. I got here in '94 for like the last few months of Ann Richards, and then Governor George W. Bush, and then Governor Rick Perry. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was chairman of our state for 4 years when George W. became president, and of course she was the one that said that poor George, he was born with a silver foot in his mouth. Next election, she got voted out.
Well, indeed so, and then, of course, that was about Bush's dad, Bush 41, at the National Convention, and it's funny because Ann Richards she was quite the character, and thought that she could go in with sort of a smile on her face and some snark and some acerbic wit. But George W., in a genius gubernatorial campaign in 1994, said, you know what? I'm scarcely going to say a negative thing about this woman. She's popular, but her policies might not be. We are a basically conservative state. I'm a basically conservative guy. I'm going to see if I can come in there and do a campaign that is refreshing in its absence of negative ads, and went negative about George W. and sank under the weight of her own negative advertising.
Yeah, boy, there's so much to be learned on that one, Mark. I hope we remember that. All right, let's get into some of the things that's going on in Texas. You guys are really business friendly. Could we send John Kitzhopper down to take a lesson?
You surely may, or just get him a copy, his own copy.
Okay, we'll send him a copy of your book.
It's a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. You're saving plane fare. Yeah. That is, in fact, my wish, is not to sit here in Texas and say, hey, we're better than y'all, but rather to say, here's some things that have worked for us. Business friendliness, sensible regulation, getting energy out of the ground, domestic American energy. If other states will do this, they too can enjoy some of what everybody's called the Texas miracle. It's not a miracle. This is a sensible reaction to sensible policies. This is what happens when you govern better. And I'm hoping that there are lessons in this for everybody, especially the folks, south of you, the long-suffering people of California.
Yeah, well, they got the same issues going on. Hey, quickly, what's your take on what's happening down the border? I know that Governor Perry has directed the National Guard down there. Are we setting up for some kind of a state-Fed conflict on this issue?
Well, there hasn't been so far. There has been a great deal of jurisdictional harmony so far. Everybody is on board. Everybody knows, that everybody's sort of pulling the wagon in the same direction. Because you have three layers. You have the Border Patrol, which are under direct control of the White House. You have the Texas DPS, Department of Professional Safety, the Public Safety, our state troopers. And they were down there to sort of bolster the Border Patrol, and that worked out okay. Now, here comes the National Guard, which is kind of a state-federal hybrid, and they are headed down there to partner up with the other people who are there, but maybe more than anything, to give the image of a country that is suddenly a little more serious about keeping illegal folks out than we were a couple of months ago. And that part might kind of be working, because if you take a look at the raw numbers of people who have been, trying to pour across the border. I mean, if you go back just 4 or 6 weeks, that's where you get those stories of people coming across, throwing up their hands and saying, please detain me, please catch me, because they knew it was a guaranteed ticket to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio or wherever. I mean, they'd be warehoused like pork products, but they were in America. They made it into America, and they knew they could probably disappear into the fabric of our nation. So far, so good. There has not been any rivalries, jurisdictional conflicts whatsoever.
All right, the name of the book is called Lone Star America, How Texas Can Save Our Country. There's a picture of it there on the screen, those watching on the Dove TV. You can check it out at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Get a copy. It's a tremendous resource. You know what? You guys running for state office in Oregon, get a copy of this book and read it before you go out on the campaign trail.
There you go.
All right, let me take a quick break. I'm sure you know what those are all about. And we'll be right back with Mark Davis.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at the Dove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on the Dove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back, and really honored to have with us today Mark Davis. He's a political commentator, a radio talk show host. If you're in Dallas, you probably hear him on the big, what we call in the industry, blowtorch, 660 KSKY, and he also hosts the William Bennett Show on Fridays. And he's authored a book, and I'm telling you, get this book. It's called The Lone Star America: How Texas Can Save Our Country. And I made the comment going in the break. Now I think about it, it's a great comment. You candidates running in the state of Oregon for any state office, get a copy of this book and read it. There's a reason why businesses are thriving in Texas. And you may want to check it out. So at Barnes & Noble or online at Amazon. Hey, Mark, what single thing you think is attracting businesses to Texas?
If it's possible to assemble in one basket a lot of the characteristics that I describe of the Texas style of governance, it is to view government as limited in the fashion that the Founding Fathers intended. That if there's anything that we do in Texas, we govern only as much as we need, to avoid chaos and provide basic services. Beyond that, we let people keep more of their money, and we let them keep more of their liberties. If I could distill it into one sentence, that would essentially be it. The problem with government in so many states, and the problem with government in so many parts of America, is it takes too much of our money and infringes on too many of our liberties. When it stops doing that, suddenly businesses are attracted, suddenly individuals thrive, and we are freer as a people. It's a win-win-win.
All right. You say in your book that environmentalists, quote, alarmists, are a little challenged with Texas. How so?
Well, because I'm so glad you've read the parts that I like to talk about the most. It's because the EPA has been at war with Texas and us with them for a long time. Everybody in Texas, everybody in America wants clean water, clean air. We want to be good stewards of the planet. The environmental extremists among us want to cripple jobs on the altar of keeping a pristine earth. I don't know where that comes from. It's certainly not biblical. It is not logical. We are called to be good stewards of the planet while providing for human productivity. And we have found a way to do this in Texas. We have found a way to be environmentalists on our own terms, which drives the federal government crazy. And that's kind of a model for how we do an enormous amount of things here in Texas. We educate our children on our own terms. We really like not to have interference from Washington in that regard. This is one of the things, to come back to Governor Perry, why his themes may resonate so loudly if he chooses to tee it up again in 2016, is this is a big states' rights environment. The United States of America is a magnificent place that is a federation of 50 independent states. They're not all their own country, but they are their own state, and the United States make up the country. That there is something different about being in Texas versus Oregon, California versus Florida, right, New York versus Alabama. And there should be. That way, if there's something you love about your state, stay there. If there's something you like in another state, go there. And the Texas flavor has been to govern with a lighter hand and leave people with more of their wealth and more of their freedoms.
All right, so the struggle between the extreme environmentalist and what you would call a Texas environmentalist, really you're a conservationist, wouldn't you say?
Well, exactly. This is that we take a lot of oil out of the ground. Right. We're bringing natural gas out of the ground. In fact, we obviously at some point need to get to a discussion of fracking, which freaks people out. This Gasland movie from a couple of years ago, showing somebody setting fire to their faucet water. That's not happening here. But are there environmental concerns to hydraulic fracturing? Sure, there are. Yeah. And the best way to deal with this is let local towns, local counties say, okay, maybe we want 1,000 feet between a gas well and a house, maybe 2,000 feet, whatever they want to do. So they have a patchwork of the will of the people, a patchwork of communities saying, we want fracking. We want natural gas, but maybe not in somebody's backyard. We got a lot of territory here. We have a lot of land here. We have a lot of energy underneath our feet, and we're making enormous money off of it. Homeowners are, our state is. It actually becomes a national security issue, because isn't it a good idea for each state and for our nation to do anything possible to harvest more American energy so that we can get less of it from places in the world that want to kill us?
Interesting. All right, I want to talk about the faith community in Texas. You seem to be the home of some of the largest ministries in the world, and you have some of the biggest churches in the world. Obviously, yes. Christians like Texas.
Christians like Texas, and Texas likes Christians. It's just
all right. All right.
Here's the thing: in my there's a whole subsection called "God, Guns, and Guts," in which I take a look at some of the social issues,
right? Yeah,
things. And on the God part of that, obviously, evangelical Protestants are our biggest subset, but we have a ton of Catholics. We have a big Muslim population. We got 26 million people. We have a lot of everybody. Mm-hmm. The great thing about life, not just for Christians, but for everybody, is I think we've got religious freedom right. We're not the only state that does, but here's the balance that I like: is you can come here and pretty well wear your Christianity on your sleeve, and no one is going to chase you from the public square. Now, we all have the responsibility to make sure that we don't try to establish a theocracy or anything like that, and we're not doing so. It's weird, because the infamous Madalyn Murray O'Hair and American Atheists and all that, that was born in Texas. That was a Texas thing. Roe versus Wade, one of the worst Supreme Court rulings in the history of the country, was a Texas case. So these are things that come from our belly. But then what do we do with them? We tell our atheists that you are as welcome to believe what you believe as I am to believe in God and his son Jesus. But here's a deal. Nobody's going to drive anybody from the public square. You're not going to tell me if I'm a private citizen or a public official that I can't profess my faith and speak of it, and without that kind of consternation. And with regard to Roe versus Wade, that case did indeed come from here. Norma McCorvey, the Jane Roe there, is now an ardent pro-life activist. Right. And once again, Governor Perry and some Texas-style conservatism might be the best battle back to give us some judges that will overturn Roe versus Wade.
Boy, you guys have done a wonderful job. And by the way, you've done a wonderful job defending the life of the unborn down there. It's just remarkable. All right, Mark. First of all, before I ask you this question, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to get me a sign that says Perry for president. I want to hang it in my office.
Well, I'll tell you what, they may be manufacturing those soon enough. You may have a Perry presidential campaign. Yeah. You may have a Ted Cruz presidential campaign.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Would that be something? And there are going to be a lot of people. But let's talk about the governors, plural, for a little bit. Right. Because Chris Christie's going to get some attention. I don't know what to think of him anymore. Bobby Jindal right next door to us in Louisiana. Scott Walker up in Wisconsin. I think there's going to be a taste for governors, because silly me, after this presidency, we might want somebody who's actually run something at some point in his life.
Yeah, that's why I think senators may not be attractive. I don't care how good they are.
This Scott Walker himself said this in an interview. Yeah. I think somebody asked Scott Walker about Ted Cruz. Right. We're trying to get these guys to talk about each other. Right. And I think Governor Walker said, I don't know, the whole senator thing, the whole legislator thing, not that Barack Obama ruined it for every senator at the beginning of time. If there is one senator that can cut through that, though, it probably is Ted Cruz, because there's no doubting the passion and fire and unapologetic, upbeat conservatism that he brings. But of the governors, there are lots of good governors. Is there anybody that can match Rick Perry's 15 years of standing up against federal overreach and guiding Texas, not just surviving, but thriving in the era of Obama? Can anybody else equal that? Mm-hmm. Just saying.
Let me ask you this. Do you believe after his last run that he's learned anything from that and how to communicate the success story of Texas?
He never really had a communication problem. He had an overconfidence problem. He had a memory problem there on that stage in 2011 when he could not remember the third agency he would get rid of.
Well, I'm sure it's never happened to you or me.
Oh, exactly. I can't find my car keys. I can't find my left shoe, you know? And when people came down hard on him about that, I think it kind of made him look human. And he said, I mean, he kicked in with the self-deprecating humor almost immediately, and I guess he'd have to fire that back up. But the bottom line is he can say, look, I may have brain cramped on that particular issue on that particular night, but I never forgot what I was trying to do in terms of keeping the federal government out of Washington's business. And I certainly didn't forget how to run a state well, and he's got 3 more years under his belt of doing that. So he will be a smarter candidate. He'll be a better prepared candidate. He won't be as medicated up from back surgery. And I'm not sitting here saying
I think
he's going to be the nominee. He's going to be the 45th president. I don't know, but it would be unwise to underestimate him.
All right. Would it create political conflict if he and Cruz are up on the stage against each other?
This is a golden question. I've always had an idea that they're going to get together at some point and say, I don't know if we draw straws, probably not, but I don't think both of them will run. I think one of them will, and neither one of them may, you never know, but if it's only one of them, chances are it may be Perry. I mean, look what he's doing. He's arguing with Rand Paul on the pages of the Washington Post about isolationism. I mean, he's all over the place doing presidential candidate type things. And Senator Cruz, whom I've also come to know in a much shorter amount of time, I think he loves to legislate. I think he loves where he is. He's
you almost need him in the Senate to continue to be the bulldog that he is.
Exactly. Listen, if we had a President Rick Perry, or listen, or anybody from any state that is an upbeat, unapologetic conservative, you give me that in the White House and Ted Cruz as a conservative blowtorch in the Senate, I get tingly thinking about the possibilities.
Well, you don't get that tingling up your leg, I know that, but let me ask you that. Let me ask you this. What are the possibilities of a complete Texas ticket?
Well, I think, God, isn't there a constitutional constraint that kicks in some ways? I mean, I think that might be a little bit of mythology. I don't know. But you know what? I'll tell you what, all of that aside, that's almost a definite no, because in the handbook, if there were on how to combine a presidential ticket, I mean, there were people who said, how about Sarah Palin and Condoleezza Rice? Well, you're not going to have 2 women. Yeah. There are people who said Alan West and Ben Carson. Well, we're not going to do 2 black guys. I mean, I know we've done 2 white guys forever, but variety is a good idea. And listen, I love my state, but Perry Cruz or Cruz Perry, that might actually be too much Texas. You give me Perry or Cruz, and then go get me, if I got a governor, give me a senator. Right. If I've got a senator, give me a governor. If I've got somebody from my neck of the woods, give me somebody from another part of the country.
All right, Mark, I got a little less than 90 seconds. I want to reach down your throat and squeeze your heart. Is there hope for America?
If I didn't think so, I wouldn't have written the book. We're a weird people sometimes. Sometimes things have to get really horrible before we start to wake up and pay attention. We could have started a Tea Party movement 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We've been overspending and trampling the Constitution for decades under presidents and Congresses of both parties. But when things got so bad, we just had to rise up and say enough, like the guy in Tiananmen Square standing up there against the tank. I absolutely believe it can be done. Texas has some solid examples on how to do it. If people are willing to pay attention, I hope in Lone Star America they will find humble suggestions on how to improve each state and how to improve the country moving forward. I absolutely believe it.
God bless you, my friend. You have a website?
The best bet, well, LoneStarAmericaChapter.com. LoneStarAmericaChapter.com. You can get a free chapter of the book. Woohoo! Find it on Amazon. 660 The Answer, 660 AM TheAnswer.com, 660 AM TheAnswer.com for the little show that I do each day in this studio. And that should probably do it for self-promotion. It's great to be on with you guys. I enormously appreciate it. And whenever I can, I escape those 105-degree temperatures, and I come to your neck of the woods.
All right, so you don't want to give out your personal cell phone number. I'll hold you off on that. All right, it's called Lone Star America, How Texas Can Save Our Country. Check it out. There's a picture up there on the screen at Amazon or at Barnes & Noble, or you can go to LoneStarChapter.com. Check it out there. Mark, you're a delight. Let's connect again, okay?
I would be more than happy. Thank you very much.
All right, God bless you. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us.